To leave, it was a difficult decision. It'd kind of been coming for a couple of years, to be honest. You know, when he started the Italian team, the talent that's involved, so, well, okay, this is looking like a pretty good team.
Your relationship with Tom, you've got to develop that with Ruji in such a short amount of time with not much time on the water. How do you do that? Do you still have that sensation now when you go sailing though?
That I'm not very good.
No.
Tom and I, the relationship we had, I could say one word and he would know exactly what I meant. And I probably took that for granted a little bit.
Welcome to SailGP One-on-One. Today I'm joined by wing trimmer Kyle Langford. How you going, Kyle?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Well, I wanted to chat to you today because I don't know too much about you, but I guess let's start from the beginning. Do you remember first time you went sailing? Did you fall in love with it on Lake Macquarie?
I don't remember the exact first time, but I just remember as a kid growing up on the water, Lake Macquarie in Australia. Both my parents are into sailing, my grandparents, my brother and sister, I'm the youngest, and you're just going out on the lake. As a kid, you know, we had a small sailing boat and, you know, spending the holidays and then starting sailing school at the local sailing club and just having good memories of being on the water with my family and friends and capsizing and swimming around and just having a good time.
I guess at the time you never would think that you would end up somewhere like here.
No, I mean, and I think even at the time, nothing like this existed. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's beyond anyone's imagination what this has turned into. And yeah, it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started to have ambitions of making a career in sailing. But I think for the early parts of my sailing, it was all about having fun, and I wasn't that competitive. I wasn't very good. But I just loved it. I just loved being on the water and having fun with my friends.
Do you still have that sensation now when you go sailing though?
That I'm not very good. Sometimes, yes, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I love sailing. I mean, I just spent the last 10 days sailing in Sweden on a cruising boat with my family. So
perfect, giving your kids the experience you had.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, trying to recreate that again. And so I just love being on the water, and, you know, the competitive side is definitely stronger now than when I was younger, and I want to win, but I still really have the love for the ocean and being outside. Now,
going back to the not feeling very good, I always said that hard work beats talent when talent's not willing to work. So when did you kind of click into that, I want to be a good sailor, I'm just going to work harder than everyone else?
I think I was quite fortunate growing up on Lake Macquarie. There's a lot of great sailors from there, like Nathan Outridge, Ian Jensen, Chris Nicholson. And Chris Nicholson, I guess, was one of my idols growing up. And I would see him out training every single day, you know, on his 49er or his 18-foot skiff. And I just remember as a kid watching my idol train every day. You know, when I was on the school bus, I'd see him out sailing, and I just thought, okay, well, if I want to be like him, that's what I have to do. And so I think to have one of your idols so close, even though we didn't have a connection then, but just to be able to see him training and putting the work in, you know, I think as a kid that kind of showed what you need to do and set the standard.
Did you ever get off the school bus and go down to the sailing club then?
There may have been a couple of times where I skipped school to go sailing.
I don't think you're the only one. I guess, when did you step up from then being, you know, a sailor at the lake to then going out and doing, you know, more competitive sailing?
I think probably when I was 15 or so, I went to the Youth Worlds with Evan Walker, a guy that I did all my youth sailing with, and that was my first international competition. And we went to Korea, and it was there we're like, wow, you know, it just opened my eyes to a whole new world, and I was just like, wow, like this is so cool, and there's people from all over the world, you know, doing exactly what I love doing, and you know, it's competitive and it was fun, and just I guess the culture around that was amazing, and that's when I really was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And
obviously Jimmy, who is now team CEO, he's Australian. Did you guys ever cross paths when you were sort of growing up and getting that competitive sailing world?
No, I guess when I was growing up was when Jimmy was you know, already on the circuit, and I guess breaking through with his first America's Cup is probably when I started, you know, competitive sailing. And so I knew of him, but I'd never met him. And the first time I came across him, I was doing the match racing circuit with an Australian team, and we were ranked pretty well. I think we were ranked number 2 in the world, and we were like a young up and coming team. And Jimmy got his break through the match racing circuit as well. And he just randomly sent us an email to our team saying, hey guys, great work. You know, it's good to see a young Aussie team out there doing what I did. By the way, we're looking for somebody for a RC44, you know, are you available? And so then I went and sailed the RC44 with Jimmy, and I guess yeah, he took me on from there.
Pretty incredible, like that one email kind of changed your trajectory then.
Yeah, I mean, it was massive. That one email kind of, yeah, set me off. And I remember doing the match racing. You know, I was only 20 years old when I started doing the RC44 with Jimmy and joined Oracle for the Cup. But I remember we were doing the match racing. We were doing pretty well, and we thought we knew everything. And then I remember the first time on the RC44, the very first tack, I fell on the water. I fell off the boat. Had to get picked up by the chase boat. And then the next time I put a hole in the sail and got an override, and I was useless. But somehow they persevered with me and realized I was just a young guy learning. And I quickly realized there was a lot to the sport that I didn't know, you know, and wasn't as good as maybe I thought I was, and had a lot to learn. And, you know, but then I was super lucky to be surrounded by a lot of really high level America's Cup sailors who took me under their wing and taught me everything.
Do you think that's like a pretty good skill? I mean, it's such an important skill to have, but to be a good learner, do you think that's something that you've got? Obviously, like you had to learn because you had to stay on the boat, but like, is that something that has made you such a good sailor?
I think the process of learning is the biggest skill you can have in sailing. And I think that in SailGP, I think the teams that are at the top are the ones who are great, like multidisciplinary sailors. And I think there's some people who come into SailGP who have been great in one class, but it doesn't always translate over. But I think if you can jump from class to class and be successful in different formats of sailing and different types of boats, you know, those people obviously have refined the process of learning. And I like to challenge myself with different types of sailing and different types of boats, and whether it's foiling or slow boats or, you know, dinghies, whatever it is, I like to try and challenge myself to refine my process of learning, because I think it makes you more adaptable when you're faced with challenging, you know, situations. And I think that being good at learning helps you, you know, develop very quickly.
You've gone through such an interesting transition. Obviously, you were with the Australian team that was dominating. You guys were at the top. You probably could do it with your eyes closed. And now you've been thrown into a situation where you're still a wing trimmer. You can probably do that with your eyes closed, but are you more of a leader, more of a coach? You're trying to talk everyone else through it and do a really good job as a wing trimmer at the same time?
Yeah, I think with these boats, it requires everybody to be so onto their job and doing it so well for the team to work, you know, at 100%. And with the Aussies, we were so refined in how we sailed, and especially with Tom and I, the relationship we had, I could say one word and he would know exactly what I meant. And, you know, he would take that information and make a decision or whatever it was. And so we could kind of sail exactly as you say, with our eyes closed. And I probably took that for granted a little bit. And also took for granted what everyone else was doing on board. And there was just a lot of subtle things that people were doing. And suddenly we start with a new team. And I'm like, okay, I didn't realize that job actually got done on board. You know, who does that? And so it's been a good process for me to actually understand and probably appreciate with hindsight how good the Aussie guys were, you know, everybody individually on board, not just Tom, but to really understand what they were doing on board. So I guess my knowledge of the boats has improved a lot with sailing with this new team. But also having the challenge of figuring out how to get to that level as a new team has been quite enjoyable.
Yeah, so what sort of role do you play within this new team?
It's developing, I would say. I'd say more in the beginning, it's more player coach, I guess, on the water. But the way that you sail these boats, you can't have the wing trimmer making decisions and being the coach on board. You need the wing trimmer to be the trimmer. Yeah. And so that's kind of the stage where we're at now, is I need to get back into my role.
Be 100%
to be 100% a wing trimmer. And, you know, Ruji's, you know, the tactician on board, he's making the decisions and setting the, you know, the course, so to speak, and I'm just working on performance. And so we're kind of working on that transition of me being back into the performance and Ruji taking on more of the course side of things.
It must be quite hard, because you kind of touched on your relationship with Tom and being able to say one word, but you've got to develop that with Ruji in such a short amount of time with not much time on the water. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, it's really challenging because we have no time. I mean, we're here in Portsmouth, and yesterday we had a training day. We haven't sailed in what feels like a year since it feels like forever ago we're in New York. And yesterday we got 13 minutes of sailing, 13 minutes of practice before, you know, race one today. So it's difficult. So we spend a lot of time online, you know, discussing. We're obviously placed in different parts over the world, so we catch up online, and we also have great support from Red Bull. So we have some mental support coaches who are used to working with bigger teams and how to communicate and build a team together. And so that's kind of the stage we're at now, trying to we identified the issues that we've got, and we can't go sailing every day, so we have to spend a lot of time talking about it.
Now, I actually just saw that that new Red Bull facility got launched in Italy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the Monfalcone training facility was just launched last week, and I think it's a great initiative by Red Bull, because they want to have that as that's really the center of foiling for Red Bull athletes and our team as well. And so we've been there a couple of times, had some meetings. They've got the Phantoms there and the Switches and some small foiling boats, and so we've done a couple of training sessions there, which has been great. And I think as the next generation of Red Bull athletes from sailing come through, they'll be based out of there, and I think it's great that they're not just looking within inside the sailing world as well. It's kite surfers and foilers and all different types of water sport athletes will be based out of there.
It's like cool to create a pathway for sort of like high performance water sports.
Yeah, and I mean that's never been done before, because I think typically countries have their Olympic programs, and a lot of the sailors are funneled through the Olympic program, but there's nothing really that leads you to be a part of Red Bull Team Italy.
Yeah.
And this is really a pathway to be a part of our team as well in the future.
Yeah, it's super cool to see. I guess one thing I was wondering is, we're kind of talking about like that learning process and developing that sort of partnership with Ruji, but another big challenge I imagine is you've gone from a team that it's like if you don't win, it kind of like feels like you haven't done a good job, whereas here you're kind of having to change the goalposts. I mean, I know you probably want to win races. That's definitely what you're about, and Ruji's about too, knowing him. But like, how has it been to kind of like reset what a good day is?
Yeah, I mean, that's been probably the biggest challenge, is to reset my expectations of the results. And in the beginning, we said results don't matter. It's all about the learning process. But of course the results matter. It's such a lie, saying that.
You're also competitive, and there's no way you don't want to win. Like,
when the helmet goes on and you pull your goggles down, like it's all about the result. You have to be at the front, and you have to be winning. And it's more just the result is a little bit out of our control in a way, that we just need to do our best job possible. And we've proved in the training we can actually sail the boat quite well, and we can be competitive. We won a practice race in New York. But the thing is, when you're in the heat of battle and you've got 12 F50s on the start line and it is hectic, that's when we just need to refine and calm things down a little bit. And I think once we can make that next step into executing in a race, not just in practice, then we'll start to be competitive.
Yeah, I guess watching Martini and the new Brazilian team win in New York, and that was a big moment for their team. I guess you guys are just like, we want that win in a real race now.
Yeah, and I think for sure it's coming, but it's just going to take some time, and the training time that we get is just non-existent, and so we just need to be creative in how we are training and improving outside of the sailing and outside of the SailGP events, and that's really what's going to make the difference, because whoever can make steps between events, between the new teams, are the ones who are going to shoot up the leaderboard quicker. And so that's really a big focus for us, is to make sure we're getting better between the events. Yeah,
and you've had a few good finishes in races, but what do you think it is that kind of like sets the difference? Is it like, I don't know, from me observing, it looks like everything's going well, and then you have one error that's like quite big. Like it doesn't, or does it feel like there's lots of little errors that add up?
No, I think it's just one big error.
Yeah.
And it's usually kind of a basic one as well. We kind of rush a maneuver, and maybe we haven't communicated leading up to that maneuver. And so it's just, again, it's about communication and, just making a standardized process for everything that we do on board. And so if we can get that down, then we'll be good. And it's very much just do the basics right. And I think in this fleet, if you can get a decent start, you can be in the top half at the reach mark, and you do all good maneuvers, you're going to finish in the top half. And if you finish in the top half in every single race, you've got a good chance of making the final. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it sounds easy.
It's simple, but it's hard. It's hard to execute in practice. So we just need to really just refine that process, make sure we're going through the exact same process, whether it's training or racing, every single time. And if we do that, then we'll be in the top half, and that'll give us a fighting chance for the finals.
Now, I imagine it was a pretty hard decision to leave your Aussie mates. Like, obviously you're still really good friends with them all. But, you know, you kind of started this off saying that, you know, it's really nice to be able to challenge yourself. What was that like, having to make the decision to leave? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did it take a few months? Like, what was it like?
I mean, it kind of been coming for a couple of years, to be honest. Jimmy's been on to me for a long time to come and join him, first with the US team.
Yeah.
He had a couple of offers, and which I had turned down. And I guess every time he spoke to me, he kind of understood a little bit more what I was after and the challenge that I was after as well. And at the time with the US team, you know, that was there, that challenge wasn't there. And, you know, when he started the Italian team, partnered with Red Bull, it was like, okay, this is getting interesting.
Yeah.
And then also the talent that's involved, you know, with Ruggi, Andrea, Volto, and so on. It's like, oh, okay, this is looking like a pretty good team. And then I think with the Aussie team, we had just been together for so long. I think I've sailed with Tom, Kinley, and Sam for 12 years,
Yeah.
or maybe, and Kinley for 16 years.
Had to get away from them. Yeah.
And I think it's actually been good for them as well,
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
honest,
yeah.
just to mix it up. And yeah, like I said, they're all still my best mates. There's no issues there. But yeah, to leave, it was a difficult decision. And I think definitely, you know, I miss a bit of that Aussie culture that we had. But again, the challenge of starting something new is exciting. And yes, there's frustrations and there's setbacks along the way. But I think once we do finally get that breakthrough result, I think the hard work will be worth it, and
Yeah,
be very
it's
satisfying.
super rewarding process. I think, like, whenever you're working towards something, and like there's two things. Like, one is you're at the top and you're trying to fight to be there, and you're always having to, you know, find those 1%ers, or you start down here and you rebuild something new and you're like, we created this. And they're like two very different things, but it's still really rewarding.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with the Aussies, because we'd been together for so long and we'd sailed the boats during the America's Cup, we had such an advantage over the other teams.
Yeah.
And the other teams were playing catch up, and we were the ones kind of, I guess, setting the standard, at least for the first couple of seasons. And then obviously the Spanish overtook us, and, you know, the Kiwis were pretty good last season as well. And so, you know, to be the chaser instead of the chased is quite a nice feeling. Of course, I'd like to be chasing a little closer to the you know, to the other guys, but I think it's really the satisfaction you get, and when you do pull it off, that's where the reward will be. But yeah, we're not quite there yet.
You have quite a lot of experience of starting from the bottom and having a comeback in the 2013 America's Cup, one of the greatest comebacks of all time, with Jimmy leading. You got thrown in last minute as a wing trimmer. What were you doing with the team before you got the call up for the big job?
So I'd been with the team for a couple of years, and yeah, I was 24, so I was the youngest on the sailing team at the time. And I'd been doing all the testing, I'd been doing a reasonable amount of AC-72 sailing, and I was quite fortunate that the A boat, or the number one wing trimmer, Dirk de Ridder, he had really taken me under his wing throughout the campaign, and he made sure that I was attending all the right design meetings, and he really did a great job of training me up. And I really owe a lot to him for preparing me. So when I did have to jump in and fill his shoes, of course I was nervous, but I guess in a 24-year-old naive way, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this, you know. But before the first race, I was so nervous. But you know, as soon as we entered the pre-start and the race started, then the kind of nerves disappeared, and it was just back to a normal sailing race. But obviously we were a long way behind the other guys, and day after day they were getting further and further ahead. And I think that's where Jimmy really showed his leadership qualities. And everybody talks about the comeback, but I didn't even really see it as a comeback, because the way that Jimmy kind of framed it, I guess, is we're just stopping them from winning. You know, we're not winning ourselves, we're just delaying their party. And we had all these rumors that the Kiwis had flown a 747 sitting on the runway at San Francisco Airport, and, you know, they'd ordered this, you know, venue and $300,000 worth of champagne, you know, we kept on saying, okay, today we're just going to put the cork back in the bottle for them. You know, they're not going to spray the champagne today. And so the motivation was really to stop them winning, spoil their party, rather than winning ourselves. And it wasn't until the scores were even at 8-8 that the mentality shifted a little bit, and we went from, okay, now we're stopping them from winning, to now we're winning ourselves. And again, that's when the nerves ramped up again, and it felt like race one again for me. And I just remember going into the final race, I was so nervous. And I think I remember Jimmy kind of giving me a bit of a nudge saying, all good, mate, we've got this, no stress. And
it's pretty nice to be with somebody at that, like probably one of the biggest moment of your career. And that is the guy that kind of gave you your first shot. Like, obviously, like that was just a couple of years prior, but to have somebody that, that believed in you and that trusted you, like, it's pretty nice to have someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also nice again to be kind of full circle back with Jimmy with this.
Exactly.
And he gave me my career basically. I owe it all to him. That that email he sent to get me on the RC44, and then he gave me a contract for the America's Cup straight after that, and then I was on the boat racing with him and winning together, and then doing some campaigns afterwards. And so yeah, I'm very fortunate and owe a lot to Jimmy. And yeah, it was a nice moment being on the boat together, from the guy that, was a hero of mine to giving me my start. And then, just such a good leader and so good under pressure that, he just makes everyone else on board relaxed.
I imagine you've learned a lot from him. And as you said, it must be so nice to be back in a team with him. And obviously he's the leader of this team off the shore. I'm sure you've learned a lot from him. Must be really exciting for the challenge that you guys have ahead together.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is just the beginning, and this is just the start of the story for Red Bull Team Italy. And I think we've got big things to come, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a lot of hard work and probably a bit of pain before we get on the top step of the podium, but that's our ambition. And we believe we've got the right people and we're developing the right processes to get there. And yeah, watch this space.
Awesome challenge ahead. Well, thank you so much for chatting. It was really cool to hear more about your journey and just have a good yarn.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to One on One. Make sure you subscribe, ping that notification bell, because we'll be back with a new podcast soon.